Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Roundup. As always, we've got a big old stack of gaming stories. Riot and Neum and that insane situation that never should have happened in the first place, and that Riot are rightfully being ridiculed for. The fact they even thought it was okay in the first place says a hell of a lot about Riot's decision making, and suffice to say is very bad. But past that, we have got EA's earning call, we have got Rocket Arena, interesting things going on there, and apparently the very big lack of any noticeable impact that E3 not being there has had on the publishers, and also the Cyberpunk 2077 scam that CD Projekt Red have been bantering a little bit about on Twitter. First though, of course, the thing we're driving right now is subs. We want to hit 250k. Most of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed, so if you're not, fix the problem. Click that button. We're basically doing daily content. We're really back in the saddle now, so yes, that, your watch time, your likes, they all help us out a lot with the algorithm. Thank you for your support, and with that, let's get into, well, first up, the Riot Neum situation. So, Neum is an insane planned megacity in Saudi Arabia. It is designed to be a smart city that is full of futuristic tech. Basically, it's the Crown Prince's vision that includes flying drone cars, robot maids, dinosaur robots, and a giant artificial moon to light the place. And the name Neum comes from Neo for new, and M, which represents an Arabic word for future, so new future. And it sounds cool, but also if you look at what they want to put in it, it seems a little bit gaudy, to be honest. But anyway, what matters here is Riot Games were absolutely nuclear blown up on all the social platforms because they accepted a huge partnership with the city to sponsor the League European Championship. And oh wow, this was widely received as being an awful move, and for more than a few reasons. The most important one is obvious. It's basic ethics and basic morals. There are some things that are just red lines, some things we should not cross, because we should have principles and care about rights. And of course, the most important thing here is Saudi Arabia's absolutely awful and barbaric treatment of LGBT people. And there's other things as well, such as, women, half the population. Over there, homosexuality is, illegal, to the tune of imprisonment, lashing, sometimes death. I suppose that jackass from One Angry Gamer would probably like it a lot then. But on just as recent as the 28th of July, a blogger was sentenced to 10 months in prison there, a $2,600 fine, and deportation for tweeting support of equal rights for same-sex relationships. Now, they are improving in women's rights, which is the wonderful news, because women can now vote as of 2015. They can drive in 2017. Incredible. It was only last year that women over 21 were allowed to travel abroad, apply for divorce or marriage or, other official documents without being accompanied by their male guardian. And also in 2019, they approved a new law that stopped men from secretly divorcing their wives. Now, and get ready for this bastion of progressivism, women actually can get a text message, an automated one, to let them know they've been divorced. So truly, the future is there. And seriously, look into the stuff. It's bloody appalling. So there's that. There's then also Neum itself. The Guardian have an article detailing the abuse of human rights by Saudi Arabia in evicting native tribes who lived in the area for generations, including extrajudicial killings. Very cool. Basically, the Saudis are very much not in line with what you could consider basic Western ideals of, human rights and things like that. So in partnering with them, Riot Games looks extremely, extremely bad. It's hard to hold a moral position with Riot right now, put it that way. Now, they announced this partnership while the LEC Twitter account had its Pride-inspired logo as its avatar. And I think that shows you the top brass don't care about anything other than money, because if they had any form of any sort of principle, they obviously would not have went for this, and many of their staff were rightly furious. Many of the LEC casters were outwardly upset on Twitter, especially since, some of them would literally be in danger if they were going to that country. So they, to that end, they quietly threatened to strike until the deal was pulled. And apparently it was hours of meetings with lots of execs to get the deal pulled, and their anti-Neum Saudi stance, needed to be communicated very clearly. What does this tell us? Well, that this partnership must have been extremely lucrative. The staff basically said, some of us are female and or openly gay. Our existence is unacceptable to the people you are dealing with. The fact that this was not enough to act is shocking. Riot did break the partnership the next day under threat of losing basically all of their on-air talent in Europe and who knows what else behind the scenes. And their official response was very diplomatic, while remaining steadfastly committed to all players, including those in Saudi Arabia. And it should be noted, again, this is the sort of thing, people will criticize the CCP, the Communist Party of China. That's like a political organization and all of that. It's not, it's not the people. And in this case, it is primarily targeted at the regime, the things that they are doing, the laws, etc. So yeah, they basically, Riot said they remained committed to all of their players, including the ones in Saudi Arabia, but that yes, they are ending the partnership, and that they moved too quickly on it and caused rifts in the community that they seek to grow. That is a non-answer. That's not an apology, but I suppose they can't say, yes, sorry, we can't support this country for, its modern history of unchecked human rights abuses. I suppose they're also fully owned by Tencent as well, so they'd be pretty hypocritical doing that, wouldn't they? It's hard to be a sort of conscientious objector to the actions of a tyrannical government, but we should still keep in mind the atrocities, that state-affiliated actors are complicit with. And it really is just messed up that this even happened. How anybody in Riot thought they could make that deal and not get called out for it, to actually get away with it, to get the money and run. How anyone thought that is absolutely beyond insane to me. How do you not have a functioning brain? Insane. So, it just throws a lot of shade in their constant talk of how much they've reformed at organizational level, how they're better now if they didn't think that partnering with this lot would be a bad thing and would even, in a very direct fashion, impact their own staff, who, again, are legally discriminated against in that country. That is insane. So their actions absolutely stand against who they claim to be, which is not a very good look at all. And I suppose a little less important in the grand scheme of things, but along the same vein here, the CSGO tournament organizers, The Blast, are apparently in a deeper partnership with Neum, but they are one that are so far sort of survived the backlash, so maybe that's something we should have a think about. Look, this is not directly about the video games, but stuff like this is an important story. At the end of the day, you've got to have morals, you've got to have principles, ethics, and principles mean nothing if they just bend for money whenever it's convenient. Riot Games. Next. EA Games. Speaking of fantastic morals and principles. So, they've had their Q1 of 2021 results, and to nobody's surprise, EA have done pretty bloody well in the money department. Andrew Wilson said it was an extraordinary quarter, in fact, an unprecedented quarter of growth as well in their business. Their net bookings for the last 12 months were just shy of $6 billion, up 17% year over year. Player acquisition in FIFA is up 100% and 150% in Madden. And that maybe is speaking to something that I would not have thought of because I'm not really in that audience, but certainly there's a big lot of people who play, football, be it, I guess what the Americans call soccer versus what the Americans call American football, or, well, they just call it football. We call it American football. But you know what I mean. There's going to be all these sports fans. Turns out they weren't able to play their sports, and those growth numbers are absolutely insane. Now, this overall brought in $3 billion in the last 3 months from live services and others, and that's just over 3 times the amount they made from full game sales, which does show you those live services are a major revenue driver for them. Now, Origin Access, that also appears to be working out quite well for them too, and it just seems like those sports games bucks are really, really insane right now. Basically, as with many others in gaming, the short-term gain of everybody staying at home in a pandemic was insane. And there's clearly a massive amount of new gamers thrown into that mix. I'd say specifically a lot of sports people wandering over, wanting to get their sports fix, but of course in a way that they can experience at home. Then next up, up, Rocket Arena. So a few days ago, we were talking about how Rocket Arena is basically was hit with an extremely steep sale just 2 weeks after launch from EA, which was quite interesting. Well, that has since continued, and there's some interesting backstory. So, following the idea that the game's actually pretty good but needs more players, it's now free to play this weekend on Xbox and Steam. Then to bolster that, it's also now a part of Origin Basic and EA Access. Now, here's the fun bit. So, until they amicably parted ways last July, it was actually going to be published by the free-to-play bunch Nexon. Now, we don't know exactly what happened there, but apparently the devs Final Strike and Nexon just had different visions for the game. Maybe Final Strike didn't want it to go the free-to-play route in the way that Nexon wanted it to, but whatever ended up happening, EA picked the game up, it went up for too much money, and now it's basically back down to free-to-play, almost, because it's so cheap. And then, of course, it's also a nice little bonus for Origin Access. Maybe that's what they all kind of want here. I mean, it's hard to know if, like, Final Strike actually stood by the $40 price tag that they had in their game at launch, or if EA maybe tried to risk it there. So it's an interesting situation. It seems to be a pretty good little game, so it's now one you can pick up for the cheap. Seems like a decent deal. So that's it for EA. Next up, though, we've got the Cyberpunk fake beta. So with the excitement and joy comes, of course, bad faith actors who just want to take advantage. Cyberpunk's no different. The Cyberpunk Twitter has been claiming that there's fake emails going around claiming to offer beta invites. And I mean, of course, email spoofing can catch people out pretty easily. And why not jump on one of the most hyped games in recent memory? So yes, if you get an email, it's almost certainly false. Do not follow it. I think it's interesting that people do fall for this stuff in general, though, but I mean, it makes sense that phishing schemes are happening for one of the largest sort of culture waves in gaming right now. Now, they have announced that they have no plans for a beta whatsoever, so you're just going to have to wait for full release. Any emails you get saying anything there, they're a load of bull. Don't click on them. Anyway, moving on to the final story, Superdata have revealed that the loss of E3 has done almost zero damage to AAA publishers, at least insofar as viewership goes. The PS5 reveal had 1.5 million average viewers compared to the 0.94 and 0.56 of the Xbox and Nintendo events of around E3 last year. Ubisoft Forward brought in 1.02 million average viewers, and that's substantially higher than the 0.75 million they had at E3 the year before. And although the PC gaming show was down significantly without any ties to E3, it does seem like overall the gaming industry has done pretty darn good. To be honest, the PC gaming show isn't really the most hype thing in the universe, so I can understand it underperforming. Now that said, E3 does have a bunch of intangible benefits we've talked about before. You know, there's all the meetings in person, the deal making and stuff like that happening, but it's pretty clear that viewers are happy enough without E3 existing. And certainly that's going to be a bit of a sting for E3 when it tries to return next year, because basically it's been proven to all the publishers that E3 wasn't really needed. So the publishers can now, I think, a lot more comfortably do things with their own deals on their own terms in a way that suits them better. So there you go, and that is it for the gaming news today. Important stories. I know that, I mean, I wonder if there'll be backlash to the Riot story. I really hope there isn't, because, I mean, seriously, like, I mean, there's obviously still a lot of people concerned about, you know, Riot, of course, being owned by Tencent and the, you know, sort of connections between Tencent and the party and all of that stuff. But certainly, you know, the people who are concerned about that should be super concerned about what's going on in, what's going on in Saudi. There's a lot of really bad things happening there. And, I just think that it was a morally untenable position, and it is really disappointing that Riot would enter that position, especially considering they tried to tell everybody that they were making amends. And what's wild is, I mean, I can't say how, but I sort of know in the grapevine from people there that there are some amends being made internally. So it is just sad that maybe for the people who are more boots in the ground, rank and file, who are trying to do their best, that, you know, the big wigs, right? The management people, the money people, that they would just sort of go and really betray their frontline staff, betray their core workers by doing a deal like this that the vast majority of them would not stand by. And I definitely say props to the large number of Riot staff. I mean, I think it was Brett Forbes. He used to be a WoW CM, which is how I originally knew of him. And like, I just remember seeing his tweet on Twitter and being like, I wonder what that's about, because it was him as a public member of Riot being like, don't know how I feel about my job right now. This is a big conflict. I'm like, wow. Okay, cool. And yeah, so props to the staff of Riot for actually making themselves heard there. I mean, it's the sort of thing, even when Blizzard, had the whole Blitzchung situation, there was an actual, with footfall protest at the orc statue in the Blizzard campus of the staff who were being like, no, this is not good. We do not support this. So it's good to know that with all of these companies, even when they are doing bad things, there's often a very large number of staff who are actually with us. Who kind of think what we think, who are, they're just regular people with their heads screwed on, and that's something you can't always say for the upper management types. So there you go. That is it for the gaming news today. Thank you very much for watching, and just let me know what you think about the stories, and with that, I'll see you next time.